It's my pleasure to host a Fireside Chat today. We have an author in the audience that we're going to bring up. He recently wrote a book called Venture Capital for Life Scientists, and it's by Will Alaynick. And so our guest today embodies the critical junction where cutting-edge academics, science meets aggressive commercial execution. Dr. Will Alaynick is an extraordinary figure in the life sciences ecosystem, having navigated successfully across 4 demanding roles: scientist, founder, operator, and investor. Will's foundation is rooted in deep biomedical research. He conducted molecular, cellular, neuroscience, and molecular endocrinology research across 4 Howard Hughes Medical Institute laboratories under the mentorship of 4 National Academy scientists. He does everything in 4s. His academic work at institutions like the Salk Institute and UCSD led to over 30 peer-reviewed papers in prestigious journals, including Cell, Science, and Neuron. And transitioning from bench to business, Will co-founded multiple ventures, guiding them from academic concepts to businesses with global sales. He was a co-founder and executive at NanoCellect Biomedical, commercializing flow cytometry technology from UCSD, and co-founded Arima Genomics, which is advancing life sciences through the power of 3D genomes. Through these and other ventures, Will has led fundraising efforts, established sales teams, and secured capital from top-tier venture firms, private equity, strategic investors, and non-dilutive NIH SBIR awards. He also helped guide Sweet Spot Diabetes Care, which was later acquired by Dexcom for $8.5 million. Today, Will uses this hard-won experience as the co-founder and managing partner at Phase 2 Ventures, where he focuses on seed-stage investing in the picks and shovels of life sciences R&D. Furthermore, he is dedicated to educating the next generation of innovators as the author of this new book. Please join me in welcoming a true bridge between the lab and the market, Dr. Will Alaynick.
I feel like we must be out of time after all that.
I wanted to give you plenty of time to get mic'd up. Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here today, and maybe you just want to start us off. Why'd you write this book?
Partially, you look for a book that's of interest to you, and there wasn't one that quite fit what I was looking for. So I just started chipping away at the beginning of it, and it got out of hand, and so I just kept going with it.
Did you get too far? I can't back out now.
Yeah, caffeine is a pretty strong motivator. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, so I just go downstairs and chip away at it. My kids were out of town for a year in Europe, and I just had some time to work on it.
Awesome. At what point did you realize that the most impactful role you could play was translating the science into a company rather than remaining in academia, where you were at some pretty prestigious institutions?
Yeah, a lot of the mentors I worked with had opportunities to form companies, and so it was in the back of my mind, but I kept going from technician to grad student to postdoc, and along the way I just keep my eyes open. Oh, that guy's doing a drug company, or that guy's doing a biotech, and maybe there's device play here. And then along the way, I interviewed at McKinsey. I thought, okay, give me some kind of insight into what that world looks like. And a group of us in grad school decided we'll be consultants, right? We have our PhDs, we must be geniuses. The phone will ring off the hook. It did not ring off the hook, but we did manage to meet some cool mentors that showed us that consulting doesn't scale the same way that doing a startup could. So that led us closer to that direction. We got paired up with a guy who, in the case of Sweet Spot, one-man shop, he needed some guys to help him. We helped him, there was an exit. We saw that there was proof of principle that could work.
And had you left your academic positions to do the consulting, or did you leave your academic positions to pursue a company first?
That was while my business partner, Jose, and myself and some other guys were still in grad school or doing a postdoc, and our mentors were pretty flexible with us having a little side hustle at that time. Yeah, and then I think engineers historically have a much tighter connection to industry. Life science PhDs and MDs There's been a little bit of an ivory tower mentality that it's unseemly to go after money, but that's been changing more recently. And I think there's a chance to help more people potentially if you come up with a cool tool or a cure or some kind of treatment than one-on-one research or small-scale research where it's grants, grad students, and papers. Maybe you can give back more as a product.
Okay. Now, as a founder who's taken technology from a research bench to global sales, what was the most significant challenge for you in bridging the valley of death in life sciences?
Getting the product or reagent or device to work get it to work outside of the laboratory environment and in the case of NanoCellect, for instance, we saw the original device and it looked like an inside-out pinball machine, and there's a whole microscope and a whole computer, and it's all separate on an air table. Getting that into a box with one cord coming out of the back, that was tricky. That kind of principle of getting it to a deployable format.
And what do you advise in terms of funding strategy for these types of companies as they're moving through these stages?
That has a lot to do with how mature your product is. If you're close to market, you can go for venture funding. The stuff I've gotten involved in early on, it was probably best to go after grants, so that's what we did. We were also close to academic founders that often could be part of that grant writing team, so we had a strong academic core, which is what the NIH is going to want to see since it's reviewed largely by academics. So we used a lot of grant funding over the years to get that initial seed funding. And then once we had a little bit more traction and proof of concept and maybe the beginnings of some commercial activity, then venture funding is more appropriate.
And did you know that going in?
No. No, that's also part of what motivated me to write this book, is when I started, I could have used a book like this to help me understand how hard it is to start a business and all the various steps that you have to keep track of and keep the plate spinning. Also understand what a venture group is looking for and how I can build the company and present the company and move the company along in order to meet the milestones that a venture group is going to want to see and eventually an acquirer.
So I guess in terms of the book and the audience, can you tell us, when we talked before, you had a couple of different audiences in mind. It's not a book for one group, per se. Can you talk about who you wrote it for and what your kind of message is?
Yeah, I was just explaining to someone a few moments ago that I wrote it for myself, for one, to just organize my thoughts and stuff, but also for who I was 10 or 15 years ago when I was trying to learn the ropes, and the next group of entrepreneurs coming up to understand the rudiments of business and the rudiments of venture so you can understand those better, and to help venture capitalists understand what operators and founders go through. So just bridge the culture. So a little bit of a form of diplomacy. There's a natural tension between those two groups. So how can those two understand each other better and make the companies work?
Is the audience also, like if maybe you're a founder who's had success and you're thinking about investing yourself, but you maybe haven't done it before, is this a guidebook for those types of individuals?
Sure, they should just contact Phase 2 Ventures and become an LP. It's very straightforward. But if you're going to invest in venture, you want to understand what is the culture of venture capital, and this tries to describe some of that, and what is the culture of the life scientists that are going to drive the returns of those investments. So give you a sense of, this is different than software, this is different than high tech. Just give them a better sense of the parameters and the culture.
Okay. So this question I think will resonate with the room, but I do want to know, your current firm, Phase 2 Ventures, specifically focuses on seed stage investing in the picks and shovels of life sciences R&D. Why do you believe tools, reagents, and infrastructure is a more compelling investment thesis than like therapeutic molecules?
I think there's room for all of those things. There's all kinds of investments, right? You can go from stocks, bonds, there's all sorts of various niche venture investments. To be candid, it's mostly a historical artifact. I started off doing tools. I've been working on tools, so I'm better suited to do investments in tools. I'm adjacent to device, I'm adjacent to therapeutics, but I tend to focus on the platform or core technology within those rather than the prosecuting those through regulatory approvals and so forth.
Do you invest in the molecules?
We've invested in companies that are going after therapeutics, but there's a internal technology that we can wrap our heads around that's more tool-oriented, and that's the tool that's going to drive that company forward. And in some cases, perhaps, that can be a standalone company.
You wrote Venture Capital for Life Scientists to help entrepreneurs and investors advance the life sciences, emphasizing the need for scientists to engage with VC to turn possibility into reality. For an academic scientist who's just made a groundbreaking discovery, has some technology they've been developing, what's the single most important mindset shift they must make to ultimately be successful and be able to recruit capital?
Yeah, so in academia, you want to have papers, you want to get grants, you want to train new scientists. So that's your three outputs. And those don't have much monetary return. So I think the biggest mindset shift you have to have is, how do I map my work onto the value inflection point stages that a venture capitalist and a venture acquirer is going to care about? So it's being very pragmatic from a financial point of view, and a lot of the skills and products that you work on, writing grants, writing papers, can become white papers, they can become brochures, materials that you still need to talk about, but you need to really get your core technology from a science experiment to a product that can be built, sold, supported, serviced. That's a different mindset.
Are there any questions for Will from the audience? We got one, and maybe one over there if we got time.
Love the book. There are a lot of venture capital books out there, so competition and differentiator. What's your biggest differentiator with this book?
Maybe weight. It came out a lot heavier than I thought. It came out to be it's like a whole slab of a book. I wasn't quite ready for that. But yeah, so I tried to take a textbook approach to it rather than a more light version of it. Yeah, there's math in there and stuff, yeah. Got heavier.
We have one more over there.
Thank you so much. This is more to supplement your question, Jim, to Will, about tools. So we live in an AI-centric world today. Tools are the only way to get us good data, right? And in order to build better AI models, you always need better data, right? Kudos to Phase 2 Ventures overall to be thinking about Biotools. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So I've got one last question. Can you tell me about this cover?
Yeah. So my postdoc was in spinal cord development from a transcriptional point of view, and then there's a book by Tufte, and he has this visual display of information or something like that. There's a series of these books, yeah. And so I was studying, trying to wrap the story behind this book as well, is that I got to the lab, I didn't know about the dorsal spinal cord at all, so I started writing down, taking notes of all the different transcription factors. And then I thought a subway map graphic of that would be cool. And one thing led to another, and I took it too far again, and I got a couple papers out of it. And so when it came to do this, I thought I could recycle that artwork. I still had the original PowerPoint that I made it in, so no licensing problems.
All right. Thank you, Will.
Hey, yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.